Славите го Господа, защо е добър, Алилуя.
Good morning, or depending on when you are watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Nick, the master prenote artist behind Orthodox Handmade, and welcome to our 17th episode on YouTube, where we'll be discussing Orthodox Christianity in the United States of America. Before we continue, excuse the sore throat. I've had the flu for about a week now and unfortunately wasn't well enough to attend church on Easter Sunday. So it's something that made me quite upset, but nevertheless I didn't want to infect anybody else. So excuse the voice, sound a little bit different today. If you're new to Orthodox Handmade, be sure to subscribe, hit the notifications bell to be notified when new episodes drop, and be sure to smash that like button. This will prompt the YouTube algorithm to recommend Orthodox Handmade unique content and assist in growing our faithful audience. Currently, we're sitting at 1,319 faithful YouTube subscribers, and in keeping with tradition, this episode's new subscriber shout out goes to Cypress Hot. Thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. It is very much appreciated. Also, be sure to watch until the end to find out the major challenge facing the Orthodox Church in the United States. Stay tuned, guys. Stay tuned. Just a quick note off topic here. I have received many comments asking where the chant used in this channel's intro can be found, so I have linked it in the description below. Now, let's get right into the video. The history of Eastern Christianity in North America traces back into the end of the 18th century, when the first Greek settlement was founded in New Smyrna, Florida, in 1768, and when the Russian Orthodox monks began their selfless missionary work among the native peoples in Alaska in 1794. Yet, it was not until World War I that several waves of immigration from the Middle East, Southern and Eastern Europe have made the Orthodox churches a permanently growing and an increasingly visible component of the American religious landscape. During the 20th century, the total number of Orthodox Christians in the US increased from about 50,000 to at least 1.2 million. Most expert estimates agree with an even more impressive 2 million figure. In the geographically limited territory of Alaska, Orthodox faithful are predominantly Russian colonists and native Alaskan converts. Some areas in California consist of Russians in San Francisco, Serbians in Jackson, and Armenians in Fresno. Massachusetts boasts Armenian communities in Cambridge, Watertown, and Worcester, whereas the coal mines and steel centers of Pennsylvania are hubs for Serbians and Carpatho-Russians. The few urban centers in the US consist of the following: Greeks in New York, Chicago, and Boston, Orthodox Arabs in New York, Romanians in Cleveland, Albanians in Boston, Macedonians and Bulgarians in Cincinnati, New York metropolitan areas, and the Midwest. Now, the Eastern Christians have spread all across the country today, but the former mentioned areas are places of concentration. These geographic changes can be attributed both to continuing immigration from the Old World and to the new patterns of settlement of children and grandchildren of the old Orthodox immigrants. In fact, today, some of the Orthodox churches are among the fastest growing American religious organizations. For instance, whereas in 1971 there were only 3 Coptic communities, now more than 115 parishes of the Coptic Orthodox Church have been organized all across the USA. Eastern Christianity in the United States is represented by more than 20 various churches. The Orthodox Christians themselves tend to speak about Orthodox jurisdictions, which belong to 2 major families: the Orthodox Oriental family, such as Armenian, Coptic, Syrian, etc., and the Eastern Orthodox churches, Greek, Russian, Macedonian, Serbian, Bulgarian, Romanian, etc. They number an estimated total of about 2,400 local parochial communities, but vary greatly in size. For instance, the Greek Archdiocese of North America has more than 530 parishes, whereas the tiny Albanian Orthodox Diocese consists of only 2. 2 circumstances are essential for understanding the nature of the Orthodox Christian churches in North America. Firstly, and historically, the notion one state, one people, one church was quite characteristic of Eastern Christianity. Therefore, when Orthodox Christians are asked about religious affiliation, they normally add an ethnic qualifier to identify their membership in a particular Orthodox church. For instance, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Syrian Orthodox, etc. Accordingly, the Eastern Christians in America share the same faith and sacraments, but the Orthodox churches as institutions have been historically organized in this country as independent from each other and ethnically based jurisdictions. This is the same for Australia as well, for the same previously mentioned reasons. Number 2, most American Orthodox churches remain the subdivisions of and subordinate to one of the mother Orthodox churches in the Old World, however, with varying levels of autonomy. Such inseparable integrity of religion and ethnicity combined with the administrative linkage to the mother churches overseas resulted in a situation when the Orthodox churches and the Eastern Christians in the United States have been always affected by political, religious, and social transformations occurring back in the Old World. For example, the establishment of the communist regimes in the Soviet Union and later in Eastern Europe has caused the internal confrontation and the political breaks among the Russian in the 1920s, Armenian 1933, Serbian 1963, Bulgarian 1963, and Romanian 1951 Orthodox parishes in America. Each of these groups has been split into 2 hostile factions. This is very interesting, folks. Those remaining true to the church headquarters abroad, and the others which have maintained that the mother church and its leaders were manipulated by the new communist authority and which have formed more or less independent church jurisdictions. As a result, today there exist several quote-unquote duplicated American Orthodox churches which share the same historic origin, ethnic ancestry, and cultural heritage, yet being separated from each other by political divisions. Despite their long historic presence in the USA, a nation that has perfectly accommodated the Roman Catholics and the countless Protestant denominations, Jews, and Mormons, the Orthodox Christians are still frequently perceived as an alienated element in the country's pluralistic religious landscape. This perception cannot be explained by the actual social position of Eastern Orthodox Christians in the USA. There is no doubt, for instance, that Greeks are among the most wealthiest and better educated segments of American society, or that Americans form an influential political lobby in the national capital. Neither can this stereotype be attributed to the participation of the Orthodox churches in the American ecumenical organizations. Today, most of them are the full members of National Council of Churches. In fact, comparing with their modest size, the American Orthodox churches have a significant impact on decision-making within NCC. For example, out of about 40 members of NCC Executive Board, 5 to 6 places are normally occupied by Eastern Christians. The Eastern Christians have been always especially vocal in the NCC Faith and Order Commission. The question why the Eastern Christian churches are still perceived by many as strangers to American society is a controversial one, and several circumstances must be taken into account to respond adequately. Firstly, traditionally, in these churches, a high priority has been given to the preservation of the ethnic heritage and identity of their members. This has been done in several ways. By retaining in the church the language of the mother country, by the establishment of all-day schools as a substitute for the regular American public schools, by organizing a network of one-day schools that exist separately from religious Sunday schools with the purpose to teach the language, geography, literature, and history of the mother country, and by establishing nationwide Orthodox ethnic women and youth organizations, etc. As a result, the Eastern Christians in the USA remain to a significant extent in the self-isolated ethnic communities despite the gradual disappearance of what used to be known as traditional urban ethnic neighborhoods. According to the results of one survey which investigated the parishes of 6 various American Orthodox jurisdictions, today less than 1/5 of Orthodox Christians live within walking distance from their church buildings, and more than 2/5 commute for at least 30 minutes to come to the church. Yet the statement, "Our parish has a strong ethnic heritage and identity that we are trying to preserve," describes quite well the situation in 47% of Orthodox parishes participating in the survey. Only 27% of those parishes have indicated that they are trying to increase their ethnic and cultural diversity. Second, though to the different extent, but in comparison with the Roman Catholic and the mainstream Protestant churches, the Orthodox churches can be defined as rather exclusive than inclusive religious organizations. This is especially obvious in their internal policies with regard to the inter-Christian in brackets Orthodox/non-Orthodox marriages and future religion of children born in these mixed families. In most extreme cases, some of the Orthodox churches, for instance Coptic Orthodox Church or the Old Calendarist Holy Orthodox Church in North America, require Roman Catholics or mainstream Protestants to become Orthodox first in order to be married canonically with their own members. The other Orthodox churches, while allowing their members to be married with the non-Orthodox Christians, still require future spouses to first sign an agreement to baptize the future children in the Orthodox Church. In general, most of the Orthodox churches try to avoid having mixed families among their members. This is achieved either by the discouraging of inter-Christian and inter-ethnic marriages, which is the case of the Oriental Orthodox churches, or to the contrary, by the encouraging conversion to Orthodoxy for those who are not yet part of the Orthodox Church. As a result, today, the proportion of mixed inter-Christian, in brackets again, Orthodox/non-Orthodox marriages is below 20%. Number 3. A very characteristic feature of American religious life is the fact that church participation serves normally also as a gateway to other forms of civic engagements. In other words, the abundance of diverse social and charity programs affiliated with local religious congregations is almost a must in the United States. Not so in the case of the American Orthodox churches, however. In all measure, the parishes of Eastern Orthodox churches demonstrate a rather low level of the interest to active civic participation in the lives of the local communities where they are situated. Also, the social services sponsored by the parishes of Orthodox churches are frequently offered exclusively to the members of the parish and not to all inhabitants of the local territorial communities. True, a certain proportion of the Orthodox Christians in the USA, especially the so-called new immigrants, do not identify themselves with the wider American society because of linguistic and cultural differences. This is easy for one to understand, guys. Yet, this fact itself is insufficient to explain the reluctant attitude of the Eastern Christian churches towards church-based social activities. It must be pointed out that the relationship between two notions, vitality of congregational/parochial life and the active social service for community, which is characteristic for the Orthodox Christians, is distinctly different in comparison with their Western Christian counterparts. The Orthodox Christians view the church as a place for worship, for unity with God, and for Holy Communion. But the very American notion of church as a social club is rather strange for them. As a result, the liturgical functions exceed by far the social ones in the case of the American Orthodox churches. Number 4. The Eastern Christians in America differ essentially from the Roman Catholics and Protestants by the role and position of clergy in organizing lives of their local religious communities. Some scholars even use the term ethnarchy in order to describe the strong combination of the priestly vocation with the socio-ethnic leadership of clergy in the American Orthodox parishes. In the previously mentioned survey, for instance, demonstrated that 3 out of 4 Orthodox parishes consider the guidance of the ruling bishop as a very important source of spiritual authority in the daily life of the parish. Much smaller proportion of surveyed parishes view human reason and understanding, 39%, or historic and ethnic tradition and culture, 35%, as the equally important sources of spiritual authority. The powerful definition of ethnarchy might be a certain overstatement, or at least not applicable to all American Orthodox churches. The fact is, however, that the whole life of the Orthodox parish is much more centered around the priest's personality than it is in the case of the American Roman Catholic parishes or in the Protestant congregations, where the priest is frequently seen simply as an employee and the process of decision-making is largely in the hands of the members of the congregational board or council. A few above examples demonstrate that the visible estrangement of the Orthodox churches from the American mainstream Christianity is largely based on the style of life in their parishes and on the vision of their mission, for whom and in what way to serve, both of which are in many aspects distinct from the Roman Catholic and the Protestant churches. This situation, however, must be interpreted neither as the deliberate creation of the barriers by the Orthodox churches, nor as their us versus them approach. The Orthodox churches are not against, but simply as of now at least, seem not particularly interested in becoming an integral part of American religious establishment. Furthermore, the ethnically based distinctions divide the Orthodox churches among themselves to an extent that there is almost no practical cooperation between them in America. The Standing Conference of Canonical Orthodox Bishops in the Americas, a permanent association of the hierarchs of all major American Orthodox churches founded in 1960, functions barely as a rather formal deliberate body. Two major American inter-Orthodox cooperative organizations, International Orthodox Christian Charity and Orthodox Christian Mission Center, run 99% of their programs outside of the country and not in the USA. In fact, some examples suggest that in the communities of Eastern Christians, the ethnic loyalty is even above religious one. For instance, among Armenians and Ukrainians living in the USA, they are not only Orthodox but are also Catholics and Protestants. Yet, the uniting factor of the common ethnic identity, culture, and heritage is immeasurably stronger than the formal religious differences inside these communities. In the case of making choices whom to marry, to which school to send the children, and etc., etc. Today, various Christian churches in American pluralistic and increasingly secular society are in the competition with other religious and secular options that strive to interpret reality. They have responded differently to this challenge of modernity. The success of their interaction with the social realm requires sensitivity to their public image and development of conversational skills. In other words, the church is challenged to find the ways to be simultaneously mystical and prophetic, spiritual and socially active, uniting liturgy with life. Perhaps the major challenge facing Orthodox churches in the USA is the temptation of the mere emphasis on the only church's function and exclusively for their own flock. It carries the danger of social isolation and would comfortably locate the Orthodox churches in the private sphere of their adherents whilst excluding them from the participation in the civic society. Accordingly, the fundamental dilemma that Eastern Christian churches are facing as they try to find their place in the American public life is not whether they should witness their moral tradition and faith, but how this can be done in the unprecedented, for them, American pluralistic context. Well, there you have it, guys. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this episode and learnt more about Orthodox Christianity in the USA and why the Orthodox Church remains to be a quote-unquote stranger to mainstream Christianity there. I myself have many faithful clients from the US and have always been intrigued about Orthodoxy there as well. I definitely see the relations between how the Orthodox churches function in the USA compared to Australia. There are many mentioned similarities in this video, and I presume it would be the same for other places such as Canada and even more so in the United Kingdom. Let me know in the comments section below what you found most interesting about this video or your own experiences learning about the Orthodox Church in America. Perhaps you live in another Western country where the same can be said about the Orthodox churches there. Either way, let me know in the comments, guys. Your input and contribution to the channel is always interesting, and I endeavor to read and respond to as many comments as possible. Once again, if you like the content that I'm creating, be sure to subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget, we're doing new subscriber shoutouts, so if you're a new subscriber, let me know in the comments section by writing subscribe. Remember to follow Orthodox Handmade on social media, where you can see all the custom tools for prayer that I handmake for the faithful all around the world. Should you be interested in having your very own prayer rope created, there are details in the description below, or you're welcome to personally liaise with myself via direct message on both Instagram and Facebook. Once again, apologies for the lost voice, guys. My throat is still sore, so thank you very much for putting up with it during this episode. Be sure to tune into our next episode where I'm hopefully much better and the topic will be a surprise. Thank you so much once again for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe and God bless.
Славите го Господа.